Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Your Concrete Success Podcast. We have an amazing guest with us here today. Stay tuned. Make sure that you stay right where you are right now. If you're listening to us on YouTube, on Spotify, hit that subscribe button because we have the one and only Mr. Blake Dungey with Volt Coatings, as well as our amazing concrete marketing crew, marketing manager, Andrea and Maddie.
Hey guys, glad to have you.
The real boss, the COO. Welcome aboard, guys. Are you guys excited for today's show?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, Volt Coatings is one of our favorite clients to design for because they have such a cool brand and they're fun to work with. So this is exciting. This is a good conversation.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of those that our graphic designers are like, I want to design for Volt. So it's exciting.
Which brings us right into the man himself, Mr. Blake. Blake, how's your day going today?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Day's going awesome. How about yours?
It's going amazing. It's going amazing. So we got a great show here today, and what we want to do is have you talk a little bit about your story and Volt Coatings. Like, you know, you're building, in my eyes, you're one of the top 3 brands in the concrete coating industry nationwide in the United States. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that because we know each other, but from the creative aspect, from the impact, and most importantly, we're going to talk about what the brand impact is internally as a company as well as externally to the clients. It's something that's above and beyond the norm. So just want to commend you for that, but let's get to know the man behind the brand here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the coatings industry and where you're from.
Yeah, so from Minnesota, that's where our business is located. We're about 20 minutes southwest of the cities, Minneapolis here. And so kind of got into coatings by accident. My first profession, I would say, started off as a hobby, turned my first profession was graphic design. And it started with a little t-shirt business. And, you know, just kind of that led into me doing some design work, people asking for apparel design, went to websites and kind of did a little bit of everything. I would say I was an inch deep and a mile wide, and anything from a branding or from a graphic design perspective that you could do, I touched. So started off with that, did some work for some big brands, did a lot of action sports work. I'm a big fan of action sports. I grew up racing motocross. And so
cool.
just all action sports in general. I love the culture. I love the art. And so, you know, really my first customers were along those types of brands. And then towards the end of my professional design career, you know, when I decided to look elsewhere, we were doing stuff did some merchandise for Red Bull, did some stuff for Dude Tour, Monster Energy Supercross, among a lot of other brands. And so that's kind of influenced Volt, which we'll get into. But really just kind of, there was maybe 5-6 years ago, I loved what I did. I did love the design stuff, but I kind of just got tired of doing it for other people. And I was like, man, I want to kind of take this experience and kind of put it all together for my own brand. And I kind of thought about some different business ideas. I come from a concrete family. So my dad and my grandpa, they've owned a concrete business that's been around 40 years. They do flat work. So things like driveways, patios. And so me and my brothers, you know, we grew up doing that. We were the slave laborers.
Yeah, exactly.
Free labor.
Yeah. So, but I always admired the business my dad and my grandpa had. And, you know, I just remember I met a man named Jesse Hodges out of California. He came to actually a supercross race here, which is motocross racing inside baseball, football stadiums. And met him about 2 years prior to actually doing a coatings business. And when I started kind of looking around at some ideas, I was like, you know, me and my wife actually talked about it. I was like, hey, what about this? Like garage floor coatings. This sounds something that's, you know, it's fascinating to me. Looks like a cool business. It had a lot of similarities of my dad's business. He does a lot of residential work and, you know, higher ticket items in and out for the most part. And I don't mind office work, but I also like getting my hands dirty. You know, we grew up, you know, kind of blue collar family, you could call it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just started picking Jesse's brain, and he came in, trained me, did an install for over the course of 5 days, I think it was. And after that, it was like off to the races. You know, all my business experience has really been self-taught. Some of it comes from books that you read the material, you apply and it works. And then other days you apply something and you feel like you got your ass kicked by Conor McGregor after 12 rounds, and you're like, oh, let's not do that again. So definitely an up and down journey as an entrepreneur, but you know, 5-6 years into it, it's been really cool to see where we're at and how far I've come and how far even just the personal growth that I've been able to have. It's been a business that's truly blessed me and my family.
That's amazing. I love how there's a connection between the design element and then there's so much design in concrete coatings with the colors and the details and that attentiveness. I love that connection. That's so cool.
Yeah. So here's a beautiful story. You grew up in the trades. You went out and went into the creative space and designed brands. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned designing, working with big brands like Red Bull that have it together, that they really have a strategy behind the brand and the movements and the goals, growth goals that they have? What did you bring into the traits, into perhaps your father's and your business that has helped you in this journey?
Yeah, it's evolved a little bit. So I'd say initially it was when I first got into this space, it was like, okay, well, what are my skill sets? Like
Hmm.
I was able to through my design business, able to communicate good and go out and communicate to customers, have conversation, build relationships and do sales there. So that helped out. But as I got into space, it was like, okay, like I really dug into, I come from a family to where it's if you're gonna do something, do it 100%.
Hmm.
And so I
That's
think
great.
for me it was, let's learn about these coatings. I feel like there's a lot of guys that get into this and it's just they kind of learn some of the surface level terminology, but
Yeah.
I mean, I started talking to I didn't want to talk to the salesperson at the manufacturers we were buying from. I was like, hey, put me on the phone with the chemist. Like, I really want to
Mm.
understand these different coatings, why we're recommending them, and and really just have that technical knowledge. And so that was one thing that helped out tremendously, and we were able to be a really good install business. In terms of we had production figured out, the quality of work was there. I'd say the second component was the design. It was like, okay, what skill sets do I have that can set me apart from everybody else? And
True.
so with my design acumen, I felt like I was able to create then epoxy it now Volt, create branding and marketing materials that made us look way more legit. Like I was that chuck in the truck guy. My first 3 months of this was towards the end of the fall. I think it was 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
I'd go rent this tiny little 12-inch grinder from one rental store. I'd rent the vacuum from another one, and that's how I got started. But
Hmm.
when you looked at our website, when you looked at our branding, we looked larger than some of the companies here in Minnesota
Yeah.
that had been around for 30 years. So I think for me it was just, hey, what's a skill set that I have that I can leverage
Hmm.
and just try to have that be a differentiator or a competitive advantage, right? And so that really helped out of the gate.
Yeah. Speak a little bit more to that for the contractors that have focused so much in their skill in the application, in the beautifying of the surfaces, and they're pretty much on top of their world in the game. And there's only so much you can do when you are the brand and you are the individual. But when you are making the business and the brand something bigger than who you are as an individual, that's something special. How did developing the brand when you were just starting out and putting a lot of focus emphasis there help you when it came to landing jobs or getting more leads or selling more floors?
Yeah, I think the main premise, I wanted to go out and do good work. So when I
Hmm.
look at my dad and my grandpa's business, this has been around 40 years. That thing's weathered recessions. They have such a great reputation, and you just learn the principles of it. It's not a really hard recipe, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's hard work. Don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but it's you treat the customer the way you want to be treated. You do really good work. You stand behind your work. So whether it's something that's in your control or out of your control that messes up a job, you're not waiting for the customer to ask you, hey, you need to replace this. You're going out and doing it, and then you charge a good price to make sure that you can stay in business. And so for me, the initial thing was I wanted to have a good brand, but it was all about the customer experience. And it
Mm.
it wasn't like I didn't get that from a book. It was just from my dad's business. Go out and do the work well, and then the rest will fall into place from there. We'll
Yeah.
figure the rest out. But it's for me, the primary focus was you have to knock out these floors, you have to execute. And so it started with, hey, this has to be a really good install.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at, okay, what other touch points do I have with the customer along
Yeah.
their buying journey from when they reach out to you for a bid to when you give them that bid, you do the follow up, you get the job, all the way through to that process is done and you're trying to collect a review. For me, it was just, hey, give a 5-star customer experience. And that's our primary focus. That's our primary mission. And for us, it's, as a business, you want to be profitable, but even with our team, it's like, hey, what winning looks like to us is if we go out there and we provide that 5-star experience, and that's not just going out and installing the floor, doing a really good job of that. It's, responsive communication on the front end, all the way through from lead to the actual sale. They're going to know what time our guys are showing up, when they're showing up. During the process, we're communicating with them. So I was like, if we do that, and at the end of the day, we can go to the customer and ask them for a 5-star review, and they give their testimony in that. I tell our guys like that's winning. Like that is when we do that right, everything else, as long as we make good, sound, practical business decisions, that'll take care of itself. But to me, it started with just the quality of the work and the quality of the experience first. And I think that's where some people get it wrong, in my opinion, is I didn't come from a service business. I'm like the school of hard knocks. So I'm learning this kind of the hard way. I'm trying to re-engineer how the big guys are doing it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was just, hey, if we focus on that, that's great, to where, now there's people that, yeah, you can get into it. And if you know the strategy of, oh, here's what you need to spend on ad spend, you got to hire this salesperson, you get this many jobs. But it's like, if the customer experience sucks and the jobs don't come out well because your technicians are poorly trained, then all that systems is, I don't know, it's kind of worthless to it.
Totally.
So it's like, the restaurant analogy. You go to a steakhouse, if the service is really good, but the steak is crap, well, you're not going to go back there, and then vice versa. If the food's really good, but the service is crap, you're not going to go back there. So there's a balance between those two things, right? But, I'd rather start with the good steak and then bring in the service if we have to.
Yeah.
And that's so good.
That is good.
That's so good.
Okay, I have a question about that. So it seems like the customer service element is very important. And it's also something that when you develop a strong brand, it's almost like your brand speaks, your customer service and your brand, they go hand in hand. But also there's other things that I find that are more achievable when you develop a strong brand. So what have you learned in terms of developing a strong brand and pricing for profit?
Yeah. I think where brand correlates to that is, what you're trying to do is communicate trust and authority off the bat, right? So to me, it really kind of hit me, I'd say around 3-4 years ago. Or actually even like during COVID. COVID was a really good example of, as their digital estimates kind of became a little bit more popular, right? Like, hey, send me square footage and pictures of your garage. I'll give you a bit off of that. And it blew my mind to me. And when I knew we kind of had something was, you do this digital bid. Like there was times where I never even met the customer, my guys or myself. We went out and did the job. Customer wasn't home, but it's like, no interaction other than maybe an email and a phone call. And you not only provided a bid, and like, I'm not talking a $2,000-$3,000 bid, I'm talking like $8,000-$9,000 jobs. And next day they're either wiring you or ACH transfer, a credit card payment, a 50% down payment without even meeting you. And it's just like, I think that's the power of brand. And you have to, we have our reviews to add that trust there. But I think that's where brand comes into play is communicating that trust. Is why should someone choose you over somebody else? What is your reputation? What do you have reviews? Are you do you stand behind your work? You could have this amazing brand, but if your Google page or Yelp page is flooded with 1-star reviews, it's like, this is probably not going to use you. So
Right.
I think that's probably been the biggest thing initially, is just communicate or getting across that trust with the customer. They know when they come to our website, they do their due diligence that, hey, we're a real deal. We're one of the main competitors in the area. And I think just being able to communicate, they're going to get that. We're going to deliver on the promises that we're making on our website, all our marketing materials, essentially.
Yeah, because if you scrap together and throw together a website, or you're just randomly putting it there, it doesn't look legit, and then they're going to expect that same kind of work when they're not going to hire you, right? So what do you think makes Volt Coatings look legit even when you were just starting out?
Oh man, I think to me it's all about being authentic. I mean, a lot of marketing is storytelling, and for us, I'm not trying to be something we're not. You have a big, and there's not saying this is the wrong way, but when I had the opportunity of rebranding to Volt, it was really, I wanted it to be an extension of myself. I want to tie back into that heritage and that upbringing I had with my family, being in the trades, working with my dad, with my brothers in the field, my grandpa. And just I think it's just authentic storytelling, essentially. And so with Volt, for me, it's, you can see it, like we do have a little bit more of an action sports theme to it. Like it's truly, I wanted to how I approach rebranding, or when I wanted to do Volt, it's I love action sports. I love the culture. I looked at Volt as, hey, if an Oakley or a Nike or an Under Armour created a concrete coatings company, what would it look like? And I think that's where some
Yes.
people, when they start a coatings business or any business, they kind of limit themselves to just look at what are people in that industry doing, to where, man, go to other industries, get inspiration. Like I'm all about looking at a variety of different brands, and I think Volt, in different industries too. I think Volt is really just, hey, how can we pick and choose some of these things I like across all these different industries, whether it's footwear, fashion, culture, action sports, and wrap it in, and take a concrete coatings business and wrap it in that cloth, right? And
Yes.
so I think it's just all about being authentic. And I know you guys have alluded to that on previous shows and podcasts you've done, is you have to have that human element to it, right? Like you can have these brand promises of, oh, 15, 20-year lifetime warranty, 1-day installs. What makes you
But
different?
who are you
Like,
guys?
Right.
yeah. So
Who
so
are
for
you?
us, like one of our, our customers are people like me, people
Yes.
like our guys, to where they're out skateboarding, they're out riding dirt bikes, UTVs, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you know, let's let's dive into that. That's not to say we can't service everybody, but kind of the old adage in marketing, it's like you can't be everything to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, for me, it's just, let's be authentic to ourselves, let's be authentic as a brand, and that should, in theory, attract the customers that are just like us, and it's done that. So,
And I love that you enjoy your brand
Mhm.
because you're representing it on your jacket. You
oh
got your
yeah, yeah,
cup. I mean, that's the
oh
fun
no,
part. Oh,
no.
there you go. There you go. Because then you're literally showing it to the world and proud of it too. Not something that you're like, ah, yeah, our logo kind of sucks. We're not gonna put it out there very many places.
Right.
And for me, I just, I wanted to be, when I had the opportunity to rebrand, it's, this, again, it's not to say this is the wrong way of doing it. It's certainly successful, but it's, now there's so many people doing the caricature logos,
Mhm.
and that look like they're out of coloring books, and that's fine. Like they're functional, they do perform, I will say that. But it's, now you see everybody rebranding that way. It's like, okay, well, now this style, in my opinion, is going to start to slowly become more of a fad, or a trend. And now it's like, okay, the customer, who am I going to choose? Am I going to choose the caricature with the rooster on it, and with the eagle? It's, again, it's not to
Mm-hmm.
dismiss those
Right.
guys, but
No.
I think
Right.
it's like, hey, don't be afraid to look inward at yourself. What are your interests? And I mean, I know
Yes.
a painting company that they're out of Pennsylvania, awesome guy, Christian Militello, and he's a big fan of baseball, and
Mhm.
his painting logo is kind of like the MLB silhouette, but with a guy with a paint roller, and
That's cool.
he plays into that, and it's just, it gives a brand personality. It kind of lets people in on kind of who you are as a company, and I think that just goes a long way. Even if they're not interested in baseball, they're not interested in action sports, they can appreciate that authenticity coming from the company they're looking at.
Yeah, when you have the ability to live your brand and who you are, it's like your brand is an extension of who you are. You're able to step into it empowered, not because someone you read it from a book that you need to follow these questions and you answer some of those questions and now here is the best brand, or you go to ChatGPT, hey, give me a brand name for this. But it's an extension of who you are. That's where the superpower. There's something that happens where when other people can feel that and sense that, that's more than just a logo, that's more than just you saying you are the brand, but it's really an extension of who you are, and you get to attract more people like that. I love that. We were literally on a call right now with Mike Aguilera. He was giving feedback on big brands, built a $70 million business, exited, and he was giving us feedback on brands, and that's part of, we're having conversations here internally. How do we support our clients? But he was saying the biggest difference between those brands that fall flat on their face, which he literally mentioned, the cartoon logos and all that. He literally said, well, that's not necessarily an expression of the business owner, entrepreneur, CEO, or the vision of the company. Like, no, they're designing that from the outside. When you're able to build it from the inside and spend some time alone, thinking about your story, thinking about where you come from, thinking about what drives you, thinking about like what do you want to create, and you build some sort of alignment and purpose in that, boom, you hit a home run there. Man, this is a great show. Anything else you guys want to ask?
Well,
here?
I'm curious to know real quick though,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to nail down what your brand name, logo, like colors, scheme? I know you were in that world for so much. Was it just in the back of your head and you're just ready for it? Or did it take you a long time to settle in on it?
It's so weird. Some of the best logos I've ever done have been made. Like I think I made this Volt logo in probably 5 to 10 minutes. And so granted, there was like iterations of it, but
Yeah.
you just kind of wake up one day and, I have a Pinterest kind of mood board where like again, I'll pull inspiration from, different brands and stuff. And the word Volt, my wife actually came up with, and she just kind of pulled it out of thin air.
Wow.
And then my favorite color is lime green. So that's why, like, I'm a huge lime green guy right here. I wish my lime green lighting worked in the back. It kind of looks yellowish. So that's why it's blue right now. But, I just kind of whipped it up. And then I'm like, hey, that looks cool. That sounds cool. I liked how short the word Volt was. I liked how edgy the logo looked. And then it was like, hey, is the domain available? Is the email, all that is available? So I kind of did it backwards, but it was just, again, for me, it was just as I was designing, I'm like, man, that looks cool. I'm gonna run with that, and not a whole lot of strategy behind it. I'm not sitting there, at first when I decided to kind of choose that, I'm like, man, am I gonna, what's the 60, 70-year-old grandma gonna think that's looking for a it's so funny. Like I've had more customers that are above the age of 65 ask me like, hey, can I get one of those vests? Can I get one
Adorable.
of those?
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
And, there's one guy, he actually just commented on one of our Instagram posts recently. And, we finished his floor. I think it was like a big $8,500 job.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, can I get one of those hats? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I emailed my apparel guys like, hey, I need, 3 XXL Carhartt sweatshirts.
You're back into the merch game now.
Oh man, I sent him a tumbler. He got like a pretty good sized goodie box from us, and I was like, man, that was so cool. And I think as you guys talked about, like designing from or having the brand come from within, it's just again you get that passion. I mean, I love our like apparel. My wife probably gets sick of me. She's even said it. She's like, hey, if we go out to dinner, she's like, can you maybe put on something other than a Volt shirt for just one night? And I'm like,
you're like, it's gonna be lime green though.
Yeah, it's gonna be lime green, right? So I'm gonna look like a safety cone inside Chris or whatever. But no, it's just been a fun experience, and I think again, just that authenticity, like that's what matters most to people.
Yeah.
And if you can speak to when you started rebranding, in that transition, was it instant? Was it like, hey, I'm gonna rebrand from one day to the other? Was it a slow transition? How did it work from the back end?
I mean,
website, truck, trailer, wraps. What was that like for you?
Yeah, you just kind of do it as you go, or at least I did. I was just like, hey, I remember coming up with it. I made the decision probably end of October, I want to say. And then I'm like, January 1st. And stupid to me to launch on January 1st because it's like I'm literally having to stay up till me and my wife probably out at 10:30.
That's how you
night,
celebrate New Year's.
Yeah, we're celebrating the New York New Year's. We're not on Central Time. I'm not staying
There you go.
So I'm like, damn it, now I gotta change out this post this post at as soon as it strikes midnight. And but yeah, it was just kind of that. I was like, okay, I got to get the emails forwarded, and I got to make sure that we have a new website that's up and running. We built that out, and then then you're kind of like looking at your trailer. Luckily we just had one trailer at the time, but you're like, man, I got to strip this trailer wrap that cost me $2,500 or whatever it was, but it's it's just where you're going, and it's again the excitement of just something new, something fresh that. You just some of the stuff we got right. Some of the stuff it's like, oh shoot, we forgot to do that. Let's get that done today. So
yeah. And then did you change your social media handles on the spot at midnight? Were you changing your social media handles, or you left them?
Facebook, yes, but actually, so before I decided on Volt, I have a couple of dummy Instagram accounts. I'm like hardcore entrepreneur. It's almost a fault of mine to where if you don't like the idea I have right now, don't worry, I'm gonna have a new one 10 minutes later. So I probably have 10 different types of brands, different companies on a folder on my computer. But on one of the dummy Instagram pages, I changed it over to Volt Coatings. I posted some of the images. No one's following it. So I just wanted to see, hey, how does this all look from a social standpoint? Well, Instagram has like, once another page takes that name, even if you change it, you're locked out of using that name for 30 days. So luckily, like literally January, I did it unknowingly. And then I went to go kind of start to change the page just to have it done. But I was going to keep the main title on Instagram like you could do. You can change the handle, but keep the description the same. And luckily 30 days was January 1st.
Oh my gosh.
I started posting stuff like, oh, 1/1/2020 or 1/1/2023, it all drops, right? And then I'm like, oh shoot, like this is gonna suck if I can't have the Volt Coatings Instagram handle till like January 3rd or January 4th. So but yeah, we did change those, but that was caused a little bit of stress temporarily.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. And fast forward from a customer's perspective, did anyone ask you anything? You know, as far as customers goes, you had leads in the pipeline going through it and
like, you're
asking
not
you,
who I
hey, what
called.
happened? What happened to you guys? You know,
Yeah, so I did do like a 12 months transition phase where it's like,
that's
hey,
good.
Google my listing, our website, or Google my business, whatever, our website, all that stuff. Like I did put, Volt Coatings and then in parentheses, like formerly known as
Yeah,
epoxy, and
that's
even
good.
in all the emails. And I think we maybe had, over the course of last year, maybe less than 10 people asked, like, hey, why the change?
Mhm.
And, for me, it was just kind of the biggest thing was coatings is evolving. A lot of people think of their garage. The terminology is still kind of, I want to get my garage floor epoxy,
Mhm.
even though,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
using
That's the common,
polyurea,
that's the only way
polyaspartic.
people talk about it in the
Yeah, yeah.
everyday
And so
life, right?
that's right. Yeah. And so I think that's evolving. And so the reason I went with coatings is we're not just using epoxy. We got epoxy, polyurea, polyaspartic,
It's
there's
good.
urethanes, and it's kind of when you talk to these people, it's like granite countertops. You could have Danny's granite countertops. Well, now there's quartz, now there's marble, now there's Cambria, like there's all
Hmm.
these different ones. And so it's just
That's
uh
smart.
yeah, it wasn't, you know, as long as you're not saying like, oh yeah, we're with the Better Business Bureau, we got a couple complaints and we just want to bury that name over here, So it's just like
That'd be a bad reason to
yeah, it's
rebrand.
just
I
a
get.
simple rebrand. And I mean, a lot of people do their due diligence, man. You get a couple that they're like, hey, we're not seeing Volt Coatings on registered for with the Secretary of State. I was like, it is. It's under a DBA. Here's the link
Oh
for
my
it.
goodness.
Yeah.
They were
That's
digging.
maybe like two people out of the group, but I'm like, hey, like,
You got a lot of
you
time
gotta,
on your hands. You want to come
yeah,
work
I'm
for
like, you
me?
got to
Or
cover your bases. You're really, and of course, those people, it's ones that it's a 2-car garage, like your lowest ticket that you're gonna have throughout the year,
Hmm.
that's
and
funny.
so it's kind of funny.
But you're right. Like epoxy, if that's your main name, and then you're going in and you're like, we don't only do epoxy. They're like, why is that your name then? It
Yeah.
is kind of a
Hmm.
confusing thing. So I get that a lot.
Hmm.
Love it. Love it.
That's good.
Yeah. So speak to us, Volt Coatings. What's in store for the future? Do you have expansion plans for the brand? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start like high level,
Hmm.
pie in the sky numbers a little bit. That's what
Sure.
they look like on paper, but 5 years out, it's very aggressive. But I'd love to be. I think Volt could really be a $20 million brand
Yeah,
in primarily
absolutely.
residential coatings.
Yes.
Just the systems we're getting out, the playbooks we're developing, things like that, and just as you start to grow and learn these things, you start to be able to scale a little bit faster than you did in the past. Next year, the goal is to go to 4 crews, or this year, excuse me, this year, 2024, we're going from 2 crews to 4. And so, it's have some hard goes in motion, but it's also one of those things like, hey, let's see how marketing plays out. Let's see all these pieces coming together. We're not forcing the issue. I think for me is some people, they want to grow in the blink of in the blink
Hmm.
of an eye at the light switch. And I'm like, hey, let's grow at a controlled pace where we can maintain that customer experience. Granted, there's going to be discomfort. You're still going to be pushing through challenges and obstacles, but that's the near goal is 4 crews by next year. 2025, we want to open a second location. So we're looking in that. And that's something that we're actually going to open ourselves. So we're not doing any licensing or franchising, things like that. It's stuff that the first 3 locations, we want to be able to kind of greenfield and start ourselves and take some of our employees. And the biggest thing for Volt, like one of our biggest things that I talk about when I'm recruiting people is not just wanting to offer a job for a technician or a crew lead, being able to offer people a career path.
It's
And that's
good.
part of the vision. It's like, hey, let's take you from a technician up to a crew lead. If you want to be a project man, like if you want to be in some of these seats, like as long as you got the right attributes, like we'll train you on the skill set.
Hmm.
And so the first 3 locations, we'd like to plan ourselves and grow those, and then the fourth one will probably be through an acquisition. So those are just kind of surface level goals to an extent. And then as you get into that, obviously this year going to 4 crews, there's a lot that you break down. You try to break it down into 90-day increments of like, hey, what do we have to do within the
Hmm.
next 90 days to
Hmm.
accomplish this section of the goal, right? It's a little bit like the adage, the how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the far goal and then the near goal to an extent.
because you don't know what you don't know. You've never had 4 crews before, so you
Hmm.
don't know the new pain points that'll come along the way, like you did when you went from 1 to 2.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that was an interesting lesson last year. I talked about it on a podcast with Tim C at Decorative Concrete of Virginia, and our biggest challenge last year, like at all the things I thought of, like you want to cover your bases, you're playing at devil's advocate, like, hey, where could this go wrong and how can we correct that before it even happens? And the stupidest thing going from 1 to 2 crews was we got a couple days where like we forgot to put rollers in the trailer or paintbrushes, or mixers, or so and so had 2 hand grinders in this
Right,
trailer
right.
and then no one had hand grinders in the second
Ah,
trailer. It's just stupid stuff like that, and that's where I realized, like, as you grow, and this would be advice I'd have for anybody in going through the next transition or next phase of their business, next phase of growth, is just get ready to solve problems quickly. Like,
yes.
as long as you have that mentality, that's it. Like, there's gonna be stuff that pops up that you can't plan for, that you wouldn't even have thought of. Just get ready to solve it as fast as you can, and that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
And
Have that margin of knowing, hey, there's going to be some unexpected, ready for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 That's good.
So who does Blake have to become for that $20 million CEO version versus the way that you're seeing yourself operating right now? Like, what are some of the things that are between where you are right now and the $20 million that you
As an
foresee
individual.
as an individual?
Yeah, this year, so my New Year's resolution, I guess you could call it, is really working on discipline. And so,
Mm,
and
yes.
then and really, I'd say really leaning into discomfort. That was one thing I learned last year is, when you go to buy that second trailer, when you go to buy the second truck, there's risks there, right? Like
Hmm.
it could all go sideways, it could not work out. And, I think for me, it's just first thing, discipline is, getting uncomfortable, doing the stuff that you maybe don't want to do, but has to get done regardless of how you feel. And that starts at my, even myself, like I have a group chat with a couple buddies to where it's like, hey, every day we got to get a workout in. We got to make sure that, from a dietary standpoint or nutrition standpoint, we're on point. For us, it's kind of a faith group. So we're reading our Bible, we're reading a
Mm,
book.
That's awesome.
We're calling each other out, right? Like if it's 9 o'clock at night and you haven't gotten your 30 minutes of cardio in or whatever, I don't care what is, I'm going to be on you in the group chat. I'm going to be calling you until you show proof that it's done. So
That's
just kind of
awesome.
just personal growth, personal development there. The biggest thing with myself outside of that, and I struggled with this last year, is going from that owner operator to where you're kind of working in the business, working on the business. It's a balance. You kind of find out like you're wearing 6 to 8 different hats at the very
yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
And so you get used to being a busybody. Where right now it's okay. Hey, what having clear intentions and having intentionality of what are the tasks I'm getting done today, and being very productive on those. And if you get those done at 11 o'clock, great. It's fighting that urge to just be working on 12 different things at once. And you might think like, oh wow, I'm being super busy, I'm being productive, but you start looking at the results, you're like, I didn't get anything done. I got 12 things half-assed today.
Hmm.
So I think that's been the biggest thing for me is growing it as a leader, and then just really into kind of that CEO role or integrator role,
Mm.
some people might call it, is just having clear focus, clear intentionality behind your actions, making sure that you're not trying to eat the whole elephant at once. It's, hey, what milestones can I get done today, tomorrow, this week, this quarter? And you have a focus of the long-term goal, but
Yeah.
you're breaking that into bite-sized chunks, and you
Mm.
can see that progress getting made, right?
Hmm.
So
And
those
it's
would
nice
probably
to have a
be
path forward because otherwise you're never done each day. You
Mm-hmm.
think there's more to be done every day. Of course there is. I mean, you have to decide, okay, if I got everything done today and I prioritized it and tasked it out, then I can actually be done for the day and spend time with my family and
Mm-hmm.
have margin in my life. So that's awesome. I do want to ask you, you're talking about your accountability group. Now, were those businessmen that you just so happened to know, or how did you guys find each other to build that group chat and to have that accountability structure?
Yeah, so this one is actually a group of one of them that's a coding buddy that I actually mentored from the very beginning, which he's been a great friend of mine ever since then. And then the other two are just two of my buddies from basically high school. We've known each other forever.
Wow.
Mm,
We all have young kids. I got 4 under 7, so we're busy here at home, and a lot of us kind of are in the newborn stage to an extent as well. My youngest now is a year and a half, so we're slowly getting out of that.
hmm.
But for us, it was just making the commitment to where you know, anyone that's had a newborn, you start to, they're on their own routine, and it's like, man, you get home and it's, you get them to bed, it's 8 o'clock. You're like, I don't want to work out right now. I don't want to read right now. You just want to zone out to Netflix, honestly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just for us, it was, we're all just kind of making that decision of like, hey, no, like we set these priorities. Now we got to take care of ourselves first so that, serve ourselves first, take care of ourselves so that we can be our best for others. Right. And
Yes.
I think it's just this ability of, that the devil tries to tries to, creep in fear in your life, doubt in your life, and make you second guess yourself. The devil's the one telling you like, oh, you can relax.
Mm.
You can watch Netflix and hang out versus doing a 30-minute ride on the Peloton or 40-minute ride, whatever.
Mhm.
And just having someone that's there for you and telling you the things that you don't want to hear, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's the
um,
thing.
I told one of my buddies the other day, he's traveling for business, and we all posted, we got our workouts done. And one of my buddies, I'm going to throw him under the bus, Dylan, he sent us a picture at the hotel. He's like walking by the gym to go to his room. And word for word, I could show you the text. I said, Dylan, if I don't see proof in the next 30 minutes that you just did 15 minutes of cardio, I'm going to come slap the shit out of you.
Wow.
I'm coming for
think,
you.
yeah.
Awesome.
Everybody, I think it was us all deciding is, our friends group, it's okay. You need people to share the negatives with. You need people to
Yes.
share like what you're actually going through. I
Mhm.
feel like you can get together with friends and be like, oh yeah, everything's going good. The guys are busy. It's like, no, I need a core group of people.
Mm.
Not a lot. I need two guys to where it's like, hey, if I need a shoulder, like, can you be there for me? If you need one, if you need an ear for me to listen, like, talk to me, like, tell me all the stuff that might be going wrong, because like we all
Yeah.
have those battles,
Yes.
right? And I think so many of the times, like, you find your closest friends, like, you're kind of shielding yourself. You don't want everybody else to know what's going on,
Mhm.
but it's like, man, really being able to dive deep with a group of people and actually know what they're going through so that you can
Yeah.
provide words of wisdom, words of encouragement, and again, that accountability. It's
Mm.
like if one of your friends is overweight, and this may sound rude, it's like, hey, you're not making healthy choices, right? Like,
Yeah.
you should be at your best so that you can be at your best for your wife, for your kids, for for your colleagues, whatever it
Mhm.
is. Like, and I think I'm a big man of faith, whether you believe in,
Amen.
whatever you want to believe, that's my faith there. And it's like, I'm an imperfect human, but you strive to every day is like, if you were to show up with God and say, hey, God, you know, did I do everything that you created me to do? Did I give it
So
my all?
good.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I think just
Yeah.
reflecting on that every single day in the back of your head of, hey, did I give it my all today? If I did, and even if the cards didn't land my way, it's, maybe God, he's shielding me from that, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's where the group, it's not necessarily business people, but it is interconnected of, hey, this is not only going to help our personal life, our family life, but it's also going to carry into our professional life,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Just working on those kind of core characteristics or core values and principles that, hey, that's what you're going to utilize to operate yourself on a daily basis across these different disciplines.
That's
I
amazing.
love
That's
that.
awesome.
One of my mentors, Garrett J. White, he's like, man, you guys come here to get kicked in the dick. So
Yeah.
that you get your shit in order. He
That
talks
does
that
not sound
way,
good. That
I
does
know.
not
She's
sound
probably
good.
gonna take it out. She's gonna be
She
like
will.
explicit content.
This will be edited
No,
out.
no, you gotta leave it. But the thing is, you gotta have an environment where you can be real, because that's going to help you grow as an individual. If you keep bottling everything and everything's together, and you're telling everyone you're doing great, business is booming, etc., but you're dying on the inside. I mean, there's repercussions to that. Even the Bible talks about that, confessing to one
Mm-hmm.
another and in one environment. So building that brotherhood or that environment, 1, 2, 3 of other individuals that are in the same place looking to grow spiritually in body. I would love to hear your take with your growth goals here. How do you find the balance with family? You have young kids.
We're all in the 4-kid club right now.
we
In
are.
this, yeah,
Like,
all of
Really?
us.
I have 4 kids.
We
Dad-
have 4
Dave,
We have
Matt,
4
you have 4
kids.
kids. You have 4 kids.
Yeah.
That's no joke, guys. 4
No.
kids is no joke. So yeah, I'd love to hear that
Especially
too.
like under 7, right?
Yes.
Under
Yeah.
7. How
Yes.
do you find the balance to be a father and a husband and yourself running a business, aggressive goals? Speak to that, please.
That's one thing I battle with, right? And
Yeah.
it's conversations I have with my wife and having her hold accountability to me. And again, it's just, I think for me this year, it's trying to create that separation between the two to an extent of, hey, as a business owner, it's constantly on your mind, right? And I think for me, it's having to get better at turning it off and setting limits, right? To where I'm one that, hey, if someone calls me at 7 o'clock or I see a lead come in, I'm so used to getting to that, right? Because it's like, hey, I want that opportunity. I want that to help the business, things like that. But I think you just got to do your best. I think deep down, and I know, like, I know there's days where it's like, man, I need to be more present, right? I need to
Hmm.
reset. And it's that constant tug of war of some days you do it right. Some days you're not the best at it. And, I'm imperfect in that way. And that's a huge thing that I got to work on. But I think you're just trying to, I'd say maybe create some boundaries with your family as well, or not boundaries, but some. My wife understands like, hey, this sometimes this isn't a 9 to 5 job or an eight
Hmm.
to four
Yeah.
job. Like there's hours that it can carry over. There's days where
Yes.
it's like, hey,
Yeah.
I have to jump in. Like,
There's
you
some
know,
understanding that that's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen at
yeah,
times.
for example, if this project the guys are working on today, if they said, hey, like we need help on this, then it's like I'm gonna dive in there with them, and if we have to be there till 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock, like I'm going to be there, right? And so I think you just have to be in alignment with your spouse and with people around you on that.
Yes.
And so, and I think just being present, it's like, dude, get home. And again, this is something I have to work on myself. I'm guilty of it. It's like, get home, throw the phone in the box, like
Yeah.
be there with your kids. You don't need to be scrolling social media. You don't need to be checking
Hmm.
your reporting on your CRMs, things like that. It's, that can all wait. And I
Hmm.
think what's given me a lot of peace and some of my faith recently, and it seems like God keeps putting this in front of me. It's like if God has it planned for you, then he'll show you the way, right? He'll
Yes.
remove people, he'll remove obstacles, he'll make it happen. And I think for me, it's sometimes there's that guilt of if you're not working, you feel like, man, the business isn't making
I
progress.
know.
Like that, it creeps in, like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think where I've been trying to realign is like, hey, if I approach my day 100%, if I conquered all the tasks that I set and I did all the actions I needed to do, and then as long as I know that I've did that, I can have peace knowing like, okay, God, if it's meant to be, it'll be there for me. If it's not,
Mm.
then
Hmm.
so be it. And again, I think we all get confused too at like we got to make this stuff happen. Like we have to grow this business to 4 crews in a quarter.
Mm.
You have such this you have this perspective of everything has to be done right here and right now,
Mm-hmm.
or it's like,
Mm.
hey, the goal can be 20 million, but it's like, hey, the goal could be 20 million in 10 years, right? Like
Yeah.
you can spread
Right.
it out a little bit more and just focus on your own journey. It's so easy to get caught up in what other people are doing
So good.
but I'd say just focus on your journey, focus on your actions. As long as you're putting in 100% to your family, to your kids, you know when you're being present, you know when you're
Yeah.
not.
Hmm.
Just have that accountability with yourself, and I think God will take care of the rest as long as you do the work that you need to do, and he'll lift that burden off your shoulders.
Amen.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's so
awesome. That's good.
powerful. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I believe communication with your spouse is the number one thing, especially as an entrepreneur. Does your spouse work with you? Does she work in any capacity or
She's
only
my soundboard, so she tells
soundboard?
me when I'm being an
Yeah.
idiot and tells me when I'm a genius, which is
they
I'd
they
say
know you
Hey,
inside out. I
that's
mean, you're
valuable.
pretty much you're exposed
She's your personal
with the
coach.
queen. Yeah.
it's so funny. Like I'll fester on something for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, and I bring it to her, and just in like 2 seconds, she's like, "Just do this." I'm like, "Thanks, Meg." So, but my wife is awesome. She stays at homes with the kids, and honestly, that is a full time
Yes.
job. It's
It
a
is.
lot.
It is.
It's
Especially for
Yes.
those ages and that
Yes.
season. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
did for
Big
those
shout out
ages.
this episode here to every spouse of every entrepreneur that's here in the home improvement concrete coating space, because you're doing a lot, and I want to commend you. And I've always said this here, and I'll always say it. I was pretty much raised by my mother, and she was a business owner, but she had to be also like a mother and all that. But still, just the amount of work that needs to be done to be present and also deal with the BS that we bring home from the
Oh yeah.
business, etc. It's a lot, and you're going through a lot. So I want to commend you, and it's just a season too. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not forever. The relationship is not going to be like this forever. Sometimes you have growing pains, and you have to dive in. Last night I stayed in the office until about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I didn't make it to our date night, but I told Maddie, I promise you, I'll make it up to you this weekend, and we're gonna have a great time. I just have these deadlines, and like she understands, and
Of
she's
course.
like, okay, well, you do your thing, and when you get home, we'll take care of whatever you need to take care of tomorrow. And but it's communication, and that's the whole thing, right? Sometimes we might fall short on expectations of other people if we're not communicating
Mm-hmm.
and
We
relating.
can't
So
read each other's mind. You
Right.
have to actually say
that's
it out
pretty
loud.
much it. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
big shout out to every spouse. You are the reason why we are moving forward. Like seriously,
Right.
there's a big fuel that we get. And for every business owner, entrepreneur, if you're the leader of your company, you're actually the leader at home as well. So you got to show up. You got to find a way to show up every single day. And that's the one thing, is where do we find the balance? I find my balance in God, in Jesus Christ. I find my balance in prayer. I find my balance in taking care of myself, my health. I have my balance with Maddie, with my children, spending time with them. I have my balance with learning and growing and developing, and finding that momentum and rituals on a daily basis. That's what it really comes down to. And it's a game. It's a game. And something I want to mention here that was big is focus on your journey. Like, oftentimes we're just focused on everyone else. Hey, this guy's growing by 200% this year or last year, and like this and that. You know, he's acquiring this company, that company, and I want to grow that way. Sometimes if you try to compete at that level and you don't have the skill sets, etc., you haven't developed, you're too premature. You're going to crash and burn at some point in time. It's a lesson that I've learned myself in a real way. So, man, this was a great episode. Anything else you guys want to chime in on?
No, it was awesome. It was so good in terms of like the journey and all the things that we talked about. It wasn't just, the business side of it. It was a very well-rounded, beautiful episode. I really enjoyed having this time with you, Blake.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I actually have some little stickers coming your way that I made for you. So
Oh,
I'll send those over.
stickers.
Some
You know, little movement on the
Look out
Instagram
for
there.
the Vault stickers. Where can they find the stickers?
Well, you just go to it. Like now, you just go to Instagram. You go in the little sticker Giphy section. You type in Volt Coatings, and you'll see a couple.
Oh, you got them in there. No way.
It's live now. So
Oh, look
man.
at it.
I like it.
Beautiful. Hey, Blake, thank you for coming through here. Your Concrete Success podcast has been a blessing and honor to have you with us, and to also be a part of your journey, and to experience and witness that, see your growth. I can't wait to see what happens in the next 5 years and the growth that you are embarking on. I know that you're going to crush it. No doubt about it. Anyone else listening to this podcast here, Your Concrete Success podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it. Find us, connect, and give us your feedback. We want to bring you value here to help you grow yourself, your business as an entrepreneur, get more leads, book more estimates, and sell more jobs. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.